Sheriff is asking for help from the Unicamp to address juvenile justice reform.
This comes on the heels of what he says has been a particularly challenging few weeks for law enforcement. Our Bella Caracta shares what local and state leaders have to say about the issue.
Douglas County officials are working out what to do about the number of minors getting in trouble with the law. Just last week, the County Commission approved a study to see what it would take to keep the current youth center open, along with the new 64-bed juvenile justice center, which was built to replace it.
My biggest thing is we need capacity.
The bed issue has launched a philosophical divide between leaders. County Commissioner Chris Rogers supports cutting down beds for youth offenders and adding alternatives.
As well, right now, that place is close to full. So to me, it proves that the issue is not the size of facility. The issue is the process through the system and the number of alternatives that's available.
Sheriff Aaron Hansen tells 6 News he supports a holistic approach to reducing youth offenders, including mental health and family services. But the infrastructure must account for the most crowded, busiest nights, like what they're seeing now.
It's the maximum capacity that really is the high watermark that you have to be ready to accommodate.
State Senator Terrell McKinney has been outspoken against building more prisons. He says the limited capacity issue was foreseeable and is critical of the Commission's latest resolution to explore keeping both youth facilities open.
Keeping both places open is dumb. As far as capacity, it's just taking more money from taxpayers to run things in an efficient way.
Instead, he supports investing in what led the kids there in the first place.
What's wrong in the community? What are the root causes of kids going into the system? I think if we don't address those issues, we're never going to get to the bottom of anything because you're just putting Band-Aids on it.
Despite disagreeing on how to go about addressing this issue, all 3 leaders agree on the need for investment and wraparound services. On your side in Omaha, Bella Caracta,